Round 9 of the OHL priority selection is underway. Terry Doyle, Mark McCalvey, and Ted Baker, Vice President of the Ontario Hockey League, with us here. And you're seeing the picks win. We saw it on Friday night. We've seen it here today. And I'm sure you got a chance to see the families that were here on Friday night as well. And I've got to think you've gone through a few of these, but an exciting time.
Yeah, it is. And you see the kids come in and the way they present themselves, and they're so professional, they're so polished. It's unbelievable, actually, when you look at your own kids when they were coming up, and you go, they were not polished like that at 16 years old. But no, it was great. It was a special evening for sure last night.
Yeah, the young men we talked to last night, whether Schaefer, whether it was Hopkins, you name it, and we've seen over the years whether McDavid comes through. I remember Aaron Ekblad came through, and as a 15-year-old, and I thought, are you sure you're 15? He carried himself. He had a presence like a 19-year-old. I'm sure that's the memories you think of as well when you're seeing these players come into the office here at 15 and 16, and then going on to star in the National Hockey League or go on to business careers, married with their own families. I've got to think that kind of brings you full circle with some of these players.
The one thing is that you're not surprised, after you see them and the way they handle themselves, and you meet their family and the support behind them, and you're just not surprised at the success that they've had, whether it's playing hockey or whether it's in school or other venues. And one of our central scouts is here today, and he's an OPP officer, and he played through our league, and it's great to see.
You've really seen the evolution of the priority selection throughout your entire time with the Ontario Hockey League, and now in 2023, coverage is all day from rounds 1 to 15. The growth of the priority selection and the prestige of it, I think, has never been higher.
Well, absolutely. And when I started with the league, we were standing in front of, we were in person, and we'd stand up there on stage, and there was no limit to rounds at that time. We didn't have a 15-round draft. It just kept going and going and going until the teams passed. And we had a restriction on protected lists, obviously, but they would delete a player in order to select a player. And so it just went on and on and on. And I remember one time we were I think it was in Brampton, when Mississauga had passed in the draft. And then they jumped back into the draft because Don Cherry saw somebody sitting up there and he wanted to select a player that was there and felt bad and selected a player. But it just got away from, it's the most important day of the year for our teams, and we wanted to create an atmosphere of a positive environment. And this was before even computers. And now when all the computers started being laptops on, there was no room. So that's why we decided to go with the internet draft, and it's been very successful.
And that's the one thing I think of where technology has grown, and to do this now versus doing this in 2001. I've got to think even probably some of the general managers were probably like, wait a minute, we're doing it by computer. And I think there were some jokes at the time that certain GMs, they had to keep them away from the computer, put them at the other end of the table so they didn't pick the wrong player or do something different. But when you think of that, I'm sure it's like, wow, okay, yeah, we made the jump before a lot of other leagues made the jump to doing things online.
Yeah, we were the first league to do an online draft, and it took a lot of preparation. We had so many backups upon backups, just in case what this happened or if that happened, and we still have backups. But I mean, it wasn't to the extent that we have now. Like we didn't have the technology that we have now and the social media that we have now and things that you require. So, but it certainly has changed.
Take me through, even step away from the priority selection, how the game has evolved in the last few decades. And we see the skill and the skating of the players, and obviously, and then off the ice, the education program and how that's evolved. I'm sure you've seen the league and the game evolve over the past 3.5 decades.
Absolutely. And when you see the players come in now, it's not getting, they're not coming into camp to prepare for the season. They start preparing, as soon as their previous season is concluded, and they all have strength and conditioning coaches now, which I'm not sure that was the case, a number of years ago. The facilities that we have now are second to none, and that is a huge difference from going back a number of years. Is the facilities that the players are playing in, the environment that the players have within their team, the dressing rooms that they have, all the support material that's there. And that really, what they're doing at home, and then they bring in it, and then it just continues for when they're with their OHL team. And and to have that support, and then the educational support. So it's there, and there's no excuse really for them not to have every opportunity to succeed.
Well, we were talking a little bit earlier about all the different programs that the league offers, and it continues to expand, it continues to grow, and I'm sure not too long ago, it was a lot smaller, and the league continues to get bigger, and with that growth comes more people into the OHL family, and I'm sure welcoming them in has been a lot of fun, and seeing the league continue to evolve, not just on the ice, but off the ice. You have to be very proud of that.
Oh, absolutely, and you just look at the number of the staff that's supported from our comms team, which does such an unbelievable job. And Dave and I sometimes joke when we're in a meeting, like, who are all these people? But no, they do an absolutely tremendous job, and then we've expanded that with Rico's involvement as well from EDI, and it just it's a requirement in this day and age. It's an expectation that people have at this particular time, and we've certainly been ahead of our time in certain areas like our draft and the process, but we've kept up with the various technology that is required too.
I'm guessing 35 years ago, it was probably just you, Dave, and Herb Morrell
That's it.
running the show from that standpoint. Obviously we want to talk about, obviously, as you're, coming down to wrapping up your time here directly with the OHL. I promise you I'm not going to take you down an area that could get emotional, so I want to ask, what are you proud of in terms of seeing, these people, how they've developed, and whether it's the players, whether it's the teams, whether it's the team involvement in the community. I'm sure that's been a lot of fun, and I'm sure there's been a lot of laughs over the years with a lot of people as well, including the commissioner. I'm sure you two have shared just a few laughs over the years.
Oh, we have, and I owe everything with this league to Dave, and everything that he's provided me with the opportunity 35 years ago with a phone call to say, hey, do you want to come work for me? That was what it was, basically. And but I'm most proud of the way that I've been able to interact with general managers over the years. Just for some giggles, on one weekend I'd said, how many guys have I actually had to deal with? And there was actually 117 different general managers during that time period. And I go back to, and you don't want to go down memory lane because, but you end up reflecting. Mm-hmm. Somewhat, or quite a bit, and the guys that were in the league, like Sherry Basson was here, and the Oshawa Generals breakfast was the first league function I ever went to, and but he was supportive right from the get-go. But I really look at the guys that have been stalwarts in our league for a period of time. They're currently in our league, like George Burnett, Mark Hunter, Dale DeGray, and I have so much respect for all of them, but those guys have been here for quite some time. Stan Butler now in the coaching role, but was in the GM role. But there's guys that I look at that welcomed me at the time, challenged me, mentored me, tutored. Were like Dick Todd, Brian Kilray, good friend. But Bert Templeton and Larry Mavety, who are no longer here. And, I learned so much from them. And you have colleagues, and you have colleagues who become friends, and after they've maybe departed the league and the like. But Bert and Mav were unbelievable. And they were ahead of their times in so many. They cared so much about the players, and just that. And that's the end of the day. Is that what you have to do? Is look in the mirror and say, if you're doing the right thing for the right reason, then you won't go wrong. And I think all of our teams do that. Our general managers do that. I love working with the general managers because they look into the mirror every day and say, are we doing the right thing for the players? Because they're the most important thing. And I know that from Killer and Dick and Mav and Bert, they always were looking after the players, and I respect them so much, and I value the relationship that I had with everybody, but specifically with those individuals was so special.
How many times, because I know I've had it as well, your phone rings, now even before call display, but then when call display, and it was Brian Kilray, and you'd pick up the phone, you'd have about 30 seconds that he had something to get off his chest, and then you'd have an awesome conversation after that. But you had to give Brian 30 seconds to whatever he wanted to get off his chest. Could be the weather, could be whatever was going on. I'm sure you answered the phone, and for 30 seconds you were listening.
But you know what with Killer is that you never hear from him. And then all of a sudden the phone will ring, and you go, uh-oh. But it was an uh-oh like, okay, there's something legitimately that we got to address.
Something important to discuss, yeah.
There was something important to discuss. There was, like, whether it's something in a game or something, whatever. And certainly you talk to them about trades or things that are going on, but in terms of league business. But in terms of a game, is that you didn't hear from him until such time. And then when you talk to him and you look at it and go, you know what, he was bang on. And it wasn't like he was calling all the time in order to express. And I respect those that have that type of way of doing things. But at the same time, that was his way of doing things. Same with Mav, same with Bert. Like those guys, is that when they had a serious concern, is that they addressed it in the proper fashion. It was respectful. It was sometimes heated. That's the way it is. That's the nature of the beast. We understand that. But it was more times than not legitimate.
So it's safe to say the relationship is probably going to be the number one thing you take away as your time at the OHL winds down?
Yes, and you can, there's unbelievable players that have come through that you've met and that type of thing. And it's not about name dropping on players, but it is relationships. And over a period of time, you develop relationships, whether it's with staff internally or whether it's with teams. And that's what you value. You value relationships, from me anyway. And you can't replace that. And that's what I've been so privileged to be able to do, is develop those relationships and respect those that I've had to work with over the years. And that's what I'll remember the most, is those opportunities.
Now, I understand there's a bit of a friendly rivalry around the office between the Markham Waxers and the Whitby Wildcats, between yourself and Commissioner Branch. And I'm sure you guys have had a little fun with that over the years. You've been both involved with minor hockey programs and coaching, and I'm sure you guys could have a little smile on a Monday morning, probably coming back in the office, depending on how some of the games went on the weekend.
Well, the one year when he had the 98s and I had the 98s, and so we were both coaching against each other, which was hilarious. And he tended to get the breaks from the officials. I'm not sure why, when I was the referee in chief of the OHL at that particular time. But it was hilarious, and we had a lot of fun, and we'd share ideas back and forth as to what you're doing, what I'm doing. But that was great. And the other thing, Terry and Mark, is that there was a time period when I was overseeing the officiating department as well. Until they decided they better do something about that. But I harken back to the Killers and Dick and Mav, etc. But Jimmy Lever, Ken Bodendistel, Sam Cisco, none are with us still, and those guys really helped me along the way as well. And they were tremendous supporters of our league. They're pillars of our league. Bill Long Award winners in our league. And those guys as well, you reflect back on. But that's when we were just talking about officiating, it reminded me. But no, we had a lot of fun in here with the battle between Markham and Whitby.
And finally, I want to leave on one more lighter note. Over the years, there are some golf events that I know you're an avid golfer. Who's that person around the league that you love to be out there on the course with, but it's like, you always seem to get one more stroke than me. You had a good competitive, fun battles on the golf course with.
Well, some of the GMs who maybe had more off season than not tend to get a little bit. They tended to be a little bit better. I know. Hey, there's a real passion for golfing. I know JR in Mississauga is a passionate golfer. I know that George in Guelph is a passionate golfer, and we get out every once in a while just to have some fun with some guys, and whether it's league functions or otherwise. But I look forward to having more opportunities to do that for sure.
And I'm sure that you call them up and say, or they'll be calling you up and say, hey, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's get on the golf course and see whose game is still better. They'll probably be on you now saying, you've got a couple extra.
They'll be looking for strokes. They'll be looking for strokes for sure.
Ted, good to see you. Appreciate the time. You've got to get back to work. We're putting you right back to work, but
Yes.
it's good to see you, and we'll see lots more of you down the road.
Thanks a lot, guys.